Hey, this is TJ from tjontheroad.com. Today we're looking at a couple great synthesizers. We're going to compare the Pro 3 from Sequential and the MatrixBrute from Arturia.
It's the meeting of the mega monophonic synthesizers.
Okay, this is just going to be a lot of fun. We're just going to take a look at the two synthesizers as a quick overview. They actually have quite a bit of differences. In fact, I would say they're more different than they are alike. I mean, they are alike. They are three oscillator, big, knobby, monophonic synthesizers, but they have different sound. They have vastly different features, different workflows. There's really little overlap. So we're not going to do a blow-by-blow. We're going to compare those features. We're really going to focus on the sound and offer some samples, and I'll give you some final thoughts. So let's get started. Let's get started looking at the features between the two synthesizers, and we'll start out with the oscillators. With the Pro 3, you have three oscillators. The first two are analog, the third is digital. You have the ability with the waveforms to sweep from a triangle wave to a sawtooth wave to a square wave. And you have the ability to do one shape mod for each individual oscillators, and they can be swept, say, with an LFO. With the MatrixBrute, you also have three oscillators. The third oscillator is not as powerful as the first two, and we'll talk about that in a minute. The first two, they have also the three waveforms, but you have the ability to blend them in any way that you want. So again, you have the triangle, the sawtooth, and the square wave. And then each individual waveform has its own ability to do its own modifications. That being, the triangle wave has what they call a metallizer. The square wave has the pulse width modulations. And the sawtooth has what they call ultrasaw. And also, there is a sub-oscillator for each one of them. Now, the third oscillator is a little limited on the MatrixBrute. It just has simple waveforms associated with it, that being the sawtooth, the square wave, the triangle, as well as a sine wave. Now, both third oscillators on the MatrixBrute as well as the Pro 3 have the ability to be used as an additional LFO. So that's a great feature for both of them, particularly with the Pro 3. That being because it has all those special waveforms, so you have the ability to modify your modulations in very cool ways. Next, let's compare the filter sections between the Pro 3 and the MatrixBrute. Now, with the Pro 3, you have 3 different types of filters that come with it. You have a 4-pole OTA, 4-pole ladder, and a 2-pole state variable filter. But that's all you get. You only get one filter. You can only use them one at a time. With the MatrixBrute, you have 2 different filters plus a master cutoff. You have the Steiner filter as well as you have a ladder filter. Now, both the Pro 3 and the MatrixBrute have drive as well as resonance controls, obviously. With the MatrixBrute, you do get an extra drive type control, what they call the brute factor. And that can get really crazy once you turn it up. So now we're going to look at the envelope differences between the 2 synthesizers. With the Pro 3, you have 4 different envelopes, one for the filter, one for the amp, and 2 auxiliary envelopes. For the MatrixBrute, you have 3 different envelopes. Now, the biggest differences between the 2, other than the difference in numbers, is the actual control differences. That being, with the Pro 3, you have dials, and with the MatrixBrute, you have sliders. Now, with the MatrixBrute, you kind of need sliders because it's the only visual representation of the actual position of the envelopes. There's no screen to show you where they are, whereas on the Pro 3, there is a visual representation of the position and shape of the envelopes. All right, let's compare the LFOs between the Pro 3 and the MatrixBrute. Now, with the Pro 3, you have 3 different LFOs, and they have waveforms that are triangle, sawtooth, reverse saw, square, and sample and hold. With the MatrixBrute, you have 2 different LFOs. They have more waveforms, though, that are available. They have sine, triangle, square, sawtooth, reverse saw, sample and hold, and sample and glide. And the MatrixBrute has a really cool feature with the firmware 2.0 of the ability to actually draw waveforms right onto the matrix. Now we're going to look at the audio rate modulations that are available, as well as feedback that is available on both the Pro 3 as well as the MatrixBrute. With the Pro 3, all three oscillators have the capability to be a source for modulations to any other destination, including themselves. And it has a tune feedback section that you can set in both a positive and negative amount. And you can set the fine tuning. Plus it has a special grunge feature that when you set the amount to extremes, gets really, really nasty. Now with the MatrixBrute, you have the ability to feed the first oscillator into the second one. You have the ability to feed the third oscillator into the first or second. And you have the ability to take the third oscillator and feed it into the filter of either filter 1 or filter 2, that being the Steiner filter or the ladder filter. And you have the ability with noise to feed it into either oscillator 1 or into a filter 1, that being the Steiner filter. Let's dive into the modulation matrix difference between the two, and largely the differences are in workflow. With the Pro 3, if you want to assign a given slot, all you need to do is hit the source button. Let's say that I want to make that an LFO, so I'll hit the LFO button, and then hit the destination. If I want to make that the cutoff, I'll twiddle the cutoff and it'll show up here in the screen. And then I set the amount. With the MatrixBrute, you have the modulation matrix. Now, you have on the one side here, you have the predefined sources. On the top row, you have 12 predefined destinations. And then you have 4 by 4 additional matrix of user-defined destinations. So let's say, for example, I want to route the master cutoff to the LFO. So I go to the LFO here, LFO 1. So now I need to assign the master cutoff to one of the user's selectable slots. So I'll hold the top button here, dial the master cutoff button, and in the Paperwhite screen, you'll see it come up. And then I can select that. And then I can set the amount. Let's take a look at the effects section for the two synthesizers. With the Pro 3, you have two different effects. They include a stereo delay, a BBB type delay, a chorus, flanger, phaser, an additional high-pass filter, which is very useful, a ring mod, and a rotating speaker. As well, on the second effect, you have an additional plate type reverb. On the MatrixBrute, you have a single, fully analog BBD effects section that includes stereo delay, mono delay, chorus, flanger, as well as analog reverb. Let's compare the control voltage differences between the Pro 3 and the MatrixBrute. With the Pro 3, you have 4 in and 4 out control voltage inputs and outputs, as well as a gate out. And those are all user assignable. Great feature. For the MatrixBrute, you have the 12 hardwired destinations as both ins and outs, but you don't have user definable destinations. It does also have sync in and out and gate in and out. All right, let's talk about the sequencers on the Pro 3 and the MatrixBrute. Now, the sequencers on both of these are pretty deep, so I don't want to go too far into that. Suffice to say that the Pro 3 probably has the edge. It has 16 lanes of modulations that are available. It has 4 different sequences that you can change them in real time, or you can create one large sequence of up to 64 steps. With the MatrixBrute, best feature of that is you have the matrix to use, so it's very hands-on. Push the buttons, change anything that you want. Great for doing it in real time. Comparing the physical features of the two synthesizers is actually quite stark, and that is, obviously the Pro 3 has only a 3-octave keyboard, whereas the MatrixBrute has a 4-octave keyboard. In the control area, you have a pitch and mod wheel here on the Pro 3, as well as a pitch and mod wheel on the MatrixBrute. You also have this cool slider with the Pro 3. With the MatrixBrute, though, you have these 4 macros controls that could be assigned anywhere on the Mod Matrix. Also, in terms of displays, the Pro 3 has a very good feedback in terms of display information that is given to you. Anytime you change any of the controls, the display will change correspondingly. With the MatrixBrute, you have the paperwhite display, which in itself is kind of cool. It's kind of creepy when the synthesizer is off, the paperwhite is still on. But it only gives you a limited amount of information, so truly the MatrixBrute is a knobby synth that doesn't really use the screen for much of the control information. So here's some final thoughts for you. It's really impossible to declare a winner between these two great mega monophonic synthesizers. Really, they sound vastly different and they complement each other really, really well. If you can, own both. Now, if you do need to choose between one or the other, the Pro 3 has more of a classic sound capability to it, and it also has a deeper sequencer. The MatrixBrute has the ability to get more unique in sound, and it also has the 2 filters that give it a little bit more of an edge in terms of sonic range. Now again, I'm not declaring a winner between either one of these 2 synths because I think they're both awesome. I think they're both great. I'm so happy to have them both in my studio, and I'm going to get a lot of use out of them. So I just want to say thank you for watching this video. Please do subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much for your support, and do check out tjontheroad.com for more to come.